Hey guys, how's it going? It's Maniac back again with a guide on one of my favorite heroes, Bastion. That's right, the belt-fed self-healing machine gun that gives main tank players nightmares is back in the meta for the first time since his OP rework. Now, before I come in here and start telling everyone to go Bastion 24/7, I do want to say that he has his place in the meta, and he's not just an all-around wonder pick. He's definitely still strongest on defense, and that's where I'll recommend you run him while you get comfortable with his new changes. Attack Bastion can work, but it has a strong likelihood of tilting your team before things even get started, so I wouldn't recommend just trying to jump in and one-trick him for the new season. Let us know in the comments down below if you guys would like to see an Attack Bastion guide, but for now, let's get right into this. Now, Bastion is a pretty straightforward hero, so there's not really a whole lot of complicated movement or anything like that you need to be worried about, but definitely the most important thing you can ever take into account as Bastion is positioning. I like this position while defending first point Anubis, because it allows my Orisa to put a shield in front of me and no one else to be in front of me blocking my sightlines. It also allows for the shield to cover all of my body. I don't have to be worried about being flanked by just this really slight angle, because the only way they can flank me is by getting behind me. Now, looking into the actual game of what we've got going on here, we can see the monkey down low and the Pharah up high. I put a little bit of chip damage into the Pharah, but nothing enough to actually do anything. I'm able to get that Winston, and I see that halt go to the D.Va, so I immediately flick over to her. She flies away, the Widow gets killed by the Pharah, or the Widow gets killed by our Widow, and the Pharah also gets picked by her, so we're pretty much safe for a few more seconds here. Now, unfortunately, and I just want to point this out just kind of as a side note, our Orisa is just kind of walking forward aimlessly here. She actually DC'd there, and kind of just couldn't control anything, lagged out, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, not really a lot could be done about that. Something like this happens in matchmaking sometimes, and it's really just kind of one of those things that you gotta let go. You can't hold it against them since it wasn't really their fault, and it definitely isn't something that's gonna happen in every game, but when you do see it, just try to take a breath and let it go. I did worry a little bit when I saw that D.Va try to dive forward like that, but it worked out okay because I was able to put enough pressure on the D.Va to cover my Orisa, and my Orisa is able to walk back safely now. My D.Va even drops down there to Matrix her while she comes back. The only issue that brought to me though was that I don't have a shield. Before she DC'd, she had already thrown the shield out and it had already been sitting for a few seconds, so by the time that she got all the way up there and couldn't place the shield for me, it kind of just put me in a position of, oh crap, I have to be careful, I have to make sure I'm self-healing while my actual healer is helping me out. Now, it didn't become too much of an issue even though they were running that junk right now. My Widow is able to pick the junk, I'm putting enough pressure that they can't really get a good angle on me, and it all worked out. Now here, I'm trying to just put enough damage to maybe get a pick as they go into the side room. I do end up getting my ult, and I'm hoping that they were actually inside that short room right there where Mercy's just flying into. Unfortunately though, not really going to get lucky. The D.Va actually matrixes my shot in there, and nothing's really going to happen with it. Now this monkey, if I had been set up in turret, I probably could have actually melted his barrier and him fast enough because he was discorded, but circumstances, I was coming out of my ultimate, so I didn't really have the opportunity to be in sentry form yet, and it did kind of slow things down. A little bit of a misplay on my part, but it works out okay. So now here, the Junkrat gets in through the flank. It turns out he actually didn't leave that side room with his team, so I put enough pressure on him and I call him out to my team, letting them know, hey, there's a Junkrat on our high ground. The D.Va goes to push him, he jumps up and just kind of feeds. Now here, they're going in for the side room. I was reloading, so I couldn't really start shooting them as soon as I would have liked, but it doesn't turn out to be a huge issue again. The Mercy is still Valking, so there's no way I would have gotten her in time, but they end up leaving because my D.Va goes down to challenge. Now they're running a Rhine instead of a Winston, which is definitely the right call when you're playing against a Bastion, as he has the biggest shield out of any of the shield tanks, and kind of has a better opportunity to take care of you as long as he's working well with his other tank. I did have to reposition there since my Orisa's shield was a little bit too far back and I was sticking out through it, but again, not a game ender. Here I'm just kind of trying to get a little bit of shots through that I wouldn't normally be able to hit in sentry form. Now, just kind of doing damage to shields is a really important part of Bastion's kit. Because if you can keep damaging their shields sufficiently enough to where they have to slow down and recharge every single time they get to cover, that puts a lot of pressure on them and makes them lose a lot of time, therefore making them make worse decisions in some cases. Now here I repositioned because this little pillar was actually in my way a little bit, and I don't really want that to be happening too much, so just kind of wanted to reposition, get that out of my way. Now, I start shooting here before the halt lands, just so I'm already shooting as soon as they're in my sight line and can take damage. The Rhine puts the shield up, which is definitely a smart move on his part, and the D.Va's matrixing, but the nice thing about this is that they just used all 2 seconds of matrix and don't really have anything else. I reposition a little bit, but they're actually running a Bastion now who's splitting off with the team, so the Bastion's sitting over on the right in main, and the rest of his team's moving up. So what I do is I decide to stay right here so I can challenge the Bastion and not let him set up, while also going for this. Now they had popped sound barrier here, and their goal was to have the Rhine actually charge me off towards his Bastion, but he's discorded and messes up his charge very badly. So I'm able to just put enough pressure on him, force him to back up. He drops down below, and now their Bastion is still set up. Now, ideally, I would have been able to shoot him to death, but I had gotten my ult, and I was ready to use it anyways. So I throw a shot out with my ult, pressure him back, and am able to just put a little bit more pressure on what left of their team has made it. Now the Lucio here on point, he's discorded, pretty easy kill. Aim could have been a little bit better, but nothing really horrible. Now this position, I was worried that the Rhine was actually going to go down here, and I wanted to be ready to cut him off before he actually could get out or charge out or anything like that. So I immediately get out of this position, go back to my standard position, and actually set up on top of the pillar this time. No real reason for it, just kind of felt like it. Try to get that D.Va out of mech, but she does have enough matrix to keep them from doing so. Now, the Orisa was calling out that she had dropped the shield behind me on accident, so I have to reposition so I'm behind the shield and don't take too much spam damage. It's a little unfortunate because it does significantly reduce my sightline, especially with this D.Va in front of me, but things happen. Now, this was really our point loser for us. So the D.Va threw the mech behind me. I should have gotten out of sentry sooner, but I guess I just wasn't really thinking too well at this point. I do die to it. I'm the only one who dies to it, which is unfortunate. And we do end up losing this point. So now I set up on a little bit of an alternate position because I didn't want them to be snowballing in, and setting up just dead center wouldn't be a great idea if they are going to try to just rush in for their first attempt, which is pretty common. So now I know that the Genji and the Bastion are over here. I do end up getting the Bastion while he's in his ultimate, which is really, really important because that ultimate can be pretty scary for my supports. The Genji's using deflect, but I'm able to just put out some spam damage and slow them down. Now that I know that they aren't going to just snowball in, I'm a little bit more free to play a little bit more aggressively. Here, I kind of channel my inner Soldier 76 and run after this Genji with my D.Va, but it all works out. I do end up getting back okay. And now I can set up just right here in the middle. Now, the nice thing about setting up right here in the middle is that it puts a lot more pressure on them as they're making their approach down mid, and tries to encourage them to go one of the other ways, either off to the left and taking the much less available space they have this way, or going through the right side, which is pretty easy to hold them in when you're running a Bastion against that. Because once they get to the door off to my far right, then it's a lot easier for me to just hold left click in one small area. So now, I'm just again kind of spamming damage. I see the D.Va going through, and that's when I know that they're trying to push right. So I immediately just spam damage in, try to break their shield as much as I can, I ult, and I want to try to get a pick here, but they do use sound barrier, so I immediately know I need to fall back a little bit while it fades. They don't push in super quickly, which is nice. Our Diva Bomb definitely is going to slow them down too. Ryan just kind of throws a charge in, which I don't think is a very good idea. He does get our Zen, but Junkrat and I are able to finish him pretty quickly. Now here, I do make a big mistake. I knew they had a Bastion, but I thought he had actually set up a little bit further to the right, over behind this giant sarcophagus. So I thought I could jump up onto high ground, sentry form, and kill the rest of his team, and make him peek me. But unfortunately, it was a bad call on my part, and I do end up dying to him here. Now, it's really important to note in this situation that whenever you have a Bastion versus a Bastion, the one that's set up first is going to win versus the one who has to peek him. It's going to happen every single time. That's just how it is because of the delay between setting up and being able to shoot. Now, my Ryan gets a nice charge on their Bastion, which is really important. Keeps doing some damage to the Diva and the Lucio. Our Diva gets their Moira. And my team does a pretty good job of shutting down that push. So, I immediately go back for my positioning just around middle, see if there's anything here. Now, the reason why I'm moving around in recon right now is because it gives me just some more mobility. I'm able to peek around a little bit, get some information until I know where they're coming from. But now I know that they're coming from main, so I'm not super worried. My Ryan gives me a shield, but unfortunately the Genji's able to finish me off because I was taking other damage. Coming out of spawn here, I'm just going to set up on the left side and see what damage I can do from here. I put enough pressure on the Moira, she fades to the other side of point. I'm able to finish her off before that Diva Bomb can. And now the Diva, for some reason, tries to pressure me a little bit. Now my Diva, and this is really important, is matrixing their Bastion. Now I'm already set up, and he's already set up, but because that matrix is helping me out, I'm able to start shooting him before he can do any damage to me. So I win that pretty easily, not super worried about it. We demech the Diva, trying to finish her off here. We get her. The Lucio is also discorded. We take him down, and now we can reset our defense. We've already beaten them on time, so we know that we have an advantage, and we're looking pretty good. I've got my ultimate. I'm just kind of spamming damage to finish getting the tick, but I figure I'm 99. Doesn't really matter at this point. So again, I'm just kind of holding left click, seeing if I can pressure them into doing anything stupid. Now they start to push over left side here. The Bastion gets set up, and he did get sound barriered, but that's not really my concern, as they did what they finally should have been doing the whole time, which is having this Rhine get up to me. Now they speed boost him, they sound barrier him, and he shatters me, which is a little bit excessive. You don't really need that many things going on to get to a Bastion, but I'm glad to take one for the team. Now considering we already have time advantage, even if we lost this right now, I would still consider it a win. But doesn't matter because my team's able to clean things up fairly well here. I come in, Zen pops trans and goes out to help people. And I pop my ult to see what I can pick off. Now, we get enough picks that this really wasn't even necessary to use my ult at this point, but I did. And my attention immediately shifted off of that Diva when I saw that Moira. So I didn't know their Moira was still on point, otherwise I would have been looking for her instead. But because that Diva was matrixing my shots, and I knew I couldn't really kill her in one shot anyways, it would have taken multiple shots, and it's pretty easy to just stagger out the matrix with my shots. I knew that immediately if I could shift onto this Moira and pick her off, that would be huge to stall things out really badly for them. So, I get the shot on the Moira, I'm able to finish her off, and now that sends her right back to spawn, which, like I said, is going to slow things down. I overextend a little bit here because I really want to kill that Rhine just for further stagger, but not quite able to get it. Try to get this Lucio, but he gets matrixed out. And then I have to ask this Rhine to politely move his hammer for me. So now there's 30 seconds left on the clock. We can play a little aggressive if we want to, but instead we called to move back, which is probably the smarter play. So we move back, I get in position, I'm ready to start spamming damage into them. Our Junkrat also is on high ground. He pops tire as they're pushing in, manages to get 2 big picks here, which is really huge for us. I'm doing some damage onto this Genji, he's dead, and now they only have 3 heroes left with 5 seconds on the clock. I put some damage into that Rhine because I know he's charging, and that's pretty much going to seal it up. So, again, just to recap, Bastion's really strong on defense, but I don't really recommend running him on attack right now. He can be strong in certain comps, and in fact, like I said, I'm willing to do a guide on that for you guys, but I would definitely stick to running him on defense, especially if you can get something like a good Widow or Hanzo, something with consistent range damage to be your secondary DPS.
And that's going to do it for me today. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Just another reminder to go check out GameLeap.com's website to get signed up for only half price and get immediate access to tons of pro guides on all of your favorite heroes. Make sure to like and share the video with friends and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our latest releases. Maniac out.